Y.A. Black will be back after class. We'll do his interview right down in the lobby here at about 1:20. And then be on the lookout on Thursday for a press release. The Big Ten is partnered with Abbott for blood donations. There's going to be a blood drive at the IMU next Tuesday and Wednesday. Some information about that. So any information you can do to maybe pass that along to your news departments, news and photo, because it might be around the same time as our interviews here. So with that, we'll get with Coach.
Thanks, Matt. Good afternoon. Good to see everybody. And just talk a little bit about this past Saturday, then we'll focus on this week's upcoming game, obviously. Again, just really happy, to get the win the other day, and happy for the way the team really responded to a tough week, tough outing the week before. And I think it's fair to say it was our most complete game thus far, and played some good complementary football in there. So happy about that. Like always on Sunday, a lot of things to clean up and a lot of things we can still get better at, which is, good to know, but also got to be working on that. So, we're 6 weeks into it right now and doing a lot of good things. Certainly some areas we can improve on. We'll just try to focus on that as we turn the page and move forward. Captains this week will be the same four guys. Got Jay Higgins, obviously, and Quinn Schulte on the defensive side. And then you've got Luke Lachey and Cade McNamara offensively. Injury-wise, pretty much where we ended the game is kind of where we're at right now. Addison Strang is going to be out several weeks here. Bo will not be able to make it this week. Maybe it's not as bad as we thought earlier in the week, but, he definitely not play Saturday. He was out there today walking around, but got a ways to go. And then on the positive front, looks like Hayden Large will be able to play if he can make it through the week, which optimistic about that, but that's some good news at least. So, right now, biggest thing right now for us is our focus is on the challenge waiting us in East Lansing on Saturday night, playing Michigan State. And, typically you go up there, they've got a good team, a talented team, and that's certainly the case. A lot of good players, all three phases, and they're very well coached. I've got nothing but total respect for Coach Smith. Only got to meet him this past summer, but I guess May, spring. But, have known about his career and admired him from afar, both as a player. I've always got a little affinity for guys that walk on. He walked on at Oregon State and led them to, an awful lot of success as a player. And then, his coaching career has been very, very impressive. And some of the people that he's worked with, I have tremendous respect for. Mike Riley and Coach Peterson. So he's been around a lot of good people, and then has done a great job at Oregon State when he went back there. And now I think you're looking at the same thing at Michigan State. A lot of the guys that worked with him last year are with him now. And then defensively, a little bit different, a little bit like last week, where you've got predominantly the offensive staff from the previous school with the head coach, and then defensively, Joe Rossi's taken over the defense, and we certainly are familiar with him. Did great work up at Minnesota. So got a really good coaching staff, and again, a lot of good players. The quarterback, and if you look at the roster, the same thing. Significant amount of transfers. I wouldn't say as many, but significant amount of transfers, and they're all impactful as you look at it. Start with the quarterback. Dual threat guy, can run the ball, can throw the ball effectively, and he's a very dangerous player. They had a good running back last year that felt like about 200 yards on us, but 100-plus yards on us, and they've got another guy to go with him. Another transfer joined in there, so they've got a couple really good running backs, a couple good receivers. Tight end, he's been very active in the passing game, came from Oregon State as well, and the center up front joined him as well. So got a really good group of players there, and then defensively, good up front. Linebackers are very, very active. One from last year, one transfer from Wisconsin, and then the back end, they're good as well. And there's number 43, one of their safeties, is extremely talented back there. So good group. And then maybe the two best specialists in the conference, excellent punter, excellent kicker. And unfortunately, the kicker had a 58-yarder against us last year. So they're a good football team. And last thing I'll just say about it, it's really kind of tough to judge them. You look at their record right now, and there's a lot of teams that are 4-2, 3-3, 2-4 in the Big Ten, and you consider they've played arguably two of the best teams, if not the best teams, not only in the conference but in the country, their last 2 times out. So, it's going to be a big challenge for us. We're well aware of that. Just a couple words about the kid captain. Hudson Ferris is a 12-year-old from Eldridge, Iowa. He'll be the guy that's a kid captain this week. And as I understand it, Hudson was just a normal Iowa kid, 9-year-old kid, and started experiencing some pain. And the doctors, unfortunately, discovered a very big tumor back on his spine. And so anyway, it's the name of the disease is neuroblastoma, which, I'm certainly not a doctor, but that's it was stage 4 neuroblastoma. And he's undergone some real extensive treatments over the last 18 months, 2 rounds of chemotherapy, 2 stem cell transplants, and then radiation followed that. This is going back a ways. So anyway, next month he'll celebrate his 2nd year of being cancer-free. So really happy to be able to represent him this weekend, and want to congratulate Hudson on that. Then lastly, just before I open it up, Scott asked a question the other day about, lessons learned from players. And that's a pretty reflective question. I'm not so sure I was in a reflective mood the other day, but it is funny. It kind of stuck with me a little bit, and thinking about it later that afternoon. One thing, first of all, if you're open to it, I think your players teach you all the time. And the one email I'd reference that I got last year, you get things, come in from former players all the time. And Will Lack was a guy who's one of my favorite all-time players here. Never started a game, was a walk-on back on that 02 team. Just a great young guy, and he's the only guy to my knowledge that we've had go to Harvard Medical School, and he's actually, ironically, on the faculty at Washington now, out in Seattle. And but he sent an email last year. It was 6 words, which I thought were pretty good. Kind of just summed up his feeling about playing in the program, things he learned. And it was the 6 words are basically show up, work hard, and never quit. And I think that's kind of what the game teaches you. And Will coincidentally just referenced those things again yesterday. He sent me a nice text message. So just throw that one in there, and I'll open it up for questions.
Blake Hornstein, Hawkeye headquarters. Kirk, just talking about Brendan Sullivan for a little bit. He's a guy that comes in. He's got this, I guess, what is it? It's a special role with this team. He comes in and just seems like he has a really positive attitude about the whole situation. He brings energy when he comes into the game, and you guys end up scoring points when he is in that red zone package. I mean, how unique is it for a guy to really kind of embrace a unique role like that and have such a positive attitude?
Yeah, he's been great, and we didn't, as you know, we didn't do a lot in the transfer portal this past year, mainly because had so many guys come back that were on the team already. So, but so glad to get he and Jacob both, join us on the offensive side, and both of them are great young guys. Brandon's got a great attitude, really good work ethic, and they jumped in June and really kind of ascended. They really stood out in terms of the way they work, their competitiveness, and so he's done a good job on the field too. More importantly, as we transitioned into August, he's had a lot to learn, like all of us have with the new offense, but he's done a really good job with that. And he's got some attributes that maybe Cade doesn't have, which we thought would be potentially impactful and helpful for us. So happy about what he's doing so far. We'll see if his role can grow and increase, but doing a really good job.
Mitch Vick, KJN, wanted to go back to Saturday. Drew and his team shared the post-game video from the locker room, and Jay giving you the game ball for win number 200, and he said he's 5 away from Woody Hayes. And I'm guessing you're not telling them where you are in the pantheon of Big Ten wins, but what does it mean to you that this team knows where you are and the history that's on the table? And
I mean, not to be I'm going to say smart ass, but I'll say smart aleck. But I mean, you can't help it, though. I mean, all this stuff is out there, I guess, all the time. So, it'd be great to get all these things done just to get them done. But I just, as I said the other day, I feel fortunate to be at a good place. It takes a lot of, you just have to have a lot of things fall in place, to have something like this happen. And a couple of thoughts. I mean, first of all, I never got into it for that. I got into it because I like being around young people, and I still want to retire as a line coach. Like, that's my real secret dream, because that's what I enjoy as much as anything, just coaching guys in a smaller room. But I've learned to love this job too. It's a different job, and there's some things about it that are really neat and cool. But you've got to be in the right place, and you got to be with the right people. As I said the other day, that's one constant. And if Coach Hayes were still alive, I'm sure he'd say the same thing. It's just, you got to be around good people, and so I feel very fortunate in that regard. And we'll see. And Yeah, the little caveat, I mean, after year one or when we were 2-18, because the body count was out there weekly, nobody would have envisioned that. So kind of go back to Will's point about you just never quit.
Hey, Kirk. Elliot Clough, Hawkeye Beacon. I wanted to ask a couple questions about Dayton Howard.
Yep.
I know you guys were his only offer across the board, no D2,
Yep.
no D3. So I guess what made you decide to pull the trigger when other schools wouldn't? And secondarily, I know you said he's a pretty solid prospect. I guess what is given you that level of encouragement and maybe looking towards the future for him?
Yeah, first of all, I didn't know nobody offered him. I mean, maybe I'd reconsider on that, but it's like most of our players when they come in. It's really, this is very different and very new to them, and it's just the way it is. I mean, it's a big step, and if our guys go to the NFL, they experience the same thing. Things happen a lot faster, and just keeps coming at you. So, but he came in and did a good job last year. Nothing to distinguish himself, good or bad, but did a good job, very solid. I was actually in here right now, the one flashback, that last practice we had out there in the spring. I mean, you have little things that you remember about players. He made a couple plays, I think, but one in particular over on our bench sideline that it was like, maybe he's getting it, that type of thing. It was just one of those aha moments, if you will. And then he's had ups and downs since then because he's young. He's going into his second year. He's not developed physically yet like he will be. But we've seen good attitude, and we've seen a guy who just shows up and works hard. So it's good for him to have some experience on the field. That's again, you can't hand that to anybody. They've got to experience it and go out and do it. So good for him to be involved in a play like that. Good learning experience at the end of that play because he can't do that either. And but that's part of the road. But we're encouraged because he's got a good attitude and he's got some good ability. So why other people didn't recruit him, I'm not sure, but we're glad that we did.
Adam Jacoby, Hawkeye Beacon. You as an offensive line guy were probably pretty impressed by how the line played against Washington. I know PFF graded them as the highest offensive line for the week, and I know coaches don't really love PFF.
I'm not laughing at you. Okay, I'm standing here thinking about how glad I am when my 6 years in the NFL there was no PFF because nobody, as far as I know, no experts were evaluating my work every week except for my boss. So anyway.
But they graded out especially well in pass protection. Do you think that was their best week of pass pro this season?
Yeah, I think it was our team's best day out collectively, and yeah, I think it was we're improving up front, and we're all cautiously optimistic again because we're more veteran, we're a little bit more developed than we've been. We've gone through a couple tough years, and up front, for nobody's fault, but it's just how it's going. So I think we're closer to being where we want to be, and it's fun to watch the guys' confidence starting to grow a little bit, and they deserve it. I mean, they did a good job Saturday. They really did. We had a lot of respect for the defense we were up against for obvious reasons, and thought our guys met the challenge and pushed. And this is going to be a different type of challenge, but another challenge nonetheless with a lot of good defensive teams in this conference. Yep.
Chad Leistico, Des Moines Register. On the outside, I see some similarities to the 2008 team. You had a little bit of a quarterback iffiness early in the season. Great running back performance. A 1-point non-conference loss. You'd like to have back probably. And a trip to East Lansing to boot. Do you see any?
It didn't go so well.
Yeah, I didn't want to.
Anyway, yeah.
Do you see any similarities? I guess how this team is wired, not necessarily those things, but just sort of like because that 08 team certainly is one of your better stories.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's one of my favorite teams to have worked with. It really was, and it's kind of like what I said to Caleb the other day about you're off to a great start, and at this point, that's pretty doggone good what he's done. But Sean Green did it for 12 games plus one, and so that's the race we run. I'll remind guys. I mean, it's we're sitting pretty good in 12 at the six the same record actually, and after 6 games, next 6 didn't go so well, and I can say the same thing about 06. I think we were 1-5 down the stretch, so. It's week to week, and this is a week-to-week league. That's part of the challenge of playing in a conference like this is, how can you meet the challenge each and every week? It's different as they are, but so far, yeah. I mean, the attitudes have been really good, and now the question is, can we maintain it for a couple more months here, knowing that it's going to be, we're going to hit some walls here. So how are we going to push through that and keep going?
David Eichel, HawkeyeInsider.com. Kirk, I think Aiden Childs was voted a captain before his first game as a true freshman. I don't really know how many players around the country are doing that. But he's a guy with a lot of different attributes. But something that strikes me is when a play is broken, he'll do everything to kind of make a play downfield. How important is it for your defense to stay in their keys and stay aligned, knowing that there could be opportunities at hand?
You just said it. I mean, it's exactly what you have to do. You have to stick with your position and stick with your responsibilities. And if you're in the back end especially, you can't be coming out of coverage because the guy looks like he's pulling it down, because, he can do both, certainly. And, to be voted captain as a newcomer, that's pretty impressive. It tells you a lot about the way he carries himself. And just talked about Brennan being here for a couple of months, and everybody respected him to the highest level, so it looks like the same thing there. But that's what you hope for with a quarterback also, is a guy who's got that, not only a good player, but, the right demeanor and leadership capabilities. We got to watch him when we were preparing for Ohio State. That's the first time we saw him, and he's a really dangerous player. He can hurt you a couple different ways.
Ethan Peter, Quad City Times. I wanted to ask you about the 2012 team. That was the last team that beat the Spartans in East Lansing. That when that team won, it ran the ball really well, not unlike this team. What do you think that says about kind of the eternal principles of winning in the Big Ten? And to talk about another walk-on, Mark Weissman was at the end of a really hot 4-game run that year. What did he bring to the program in his 3 years with it? Yeah,
Mark was a great player for us, and he's a tremendous young man. So did a great job. He was big in that game too. And to your point about running the ball, if you can run the ball in this conference, especially, the wind was kicking up, 2 days ago? A reminder on Sunday that, we got that coming down the road here today. A little nippy out there at practice. So, we're getting ready to head into that time of year where that helps if you can, at least run the ball semi-successfully. So, and if you got to throw it. I mean, you'll be able to throw it too, but you have to learn how to handle the elements. And I think it rained that day too up there, if I remember. It was a rainy day, but anyway, it's going to take everything. And that was a good memory certainly that year.
John Seppi, Cedar Rapids Gazette. Got a couple questions in case the mic doesn't get back to me. First of all, with Logan Jones, he's talking earlier about, coaches sticking with him even when things, as he said, were ugly 2 years ago. What did you see kind of from him, and what's it like to now get to see him reap the rewards of that?
And with all due respect to Logan, I don't know what the heck he's talking about. It never looked too ugly to me. He is, he's just like, he's the kind of guy we want on our football team. He's just everything about him. Everything he does is just with purpose. He's really wired in when he's working. He's very popular with his teammates, and he's just so invested. Comes from a great family, mom, sister, really good people. But it may not have been going perfectly for him, all that kind of stuff. But he's such a good prospect, and just 2 years ago now he's a really good football player. Just because he's got every attribute you hope for. He's a hard worker, very selfless, and moved over to the offensive side. And again, I don't know if I've said it publicly, but I screwed that one up. We should have done that in December. I should have approached him then instead of waiting until spring ball. So that slowed his progress down too. We could have done him a favor by getting him quicker, get over there quicker. He can blame that on me. But I'm just so glad he's on our team, and he's playing really well. He's just no big surprise. I mean, we were certainly counting on that.
And then with third down, that's been kind of one of the really big improvements this year. Kind of what do you attribute kind of the greater ability to move the chains there?
If you can manage the situations a little bit, that certainly helps. And then, to the point earlier, we are protecting, I think, a little bit better. Probably getting the ball a little quicker. And, all those things help out. And then somebody's got to get open if you're going to get it out. So, but that's something we're going to have to keep working on. And I'm getting ready to walk into a meeting, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more here in about a half hour. Just because these guys have some looks that, present some challenges, and they have some guys that can get back there pretty quick. So we're going to have to try to figure something out.
Tyler Tashman with the Des Moines Register. I'm curious about the kind of genesis of the red zone package. Was it Tim that came to you first and kind of pitched that? And what was your initial thoughts when that first became a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Tim is a coordinator, and he's running it. I mean, that's his deal. And pretty much everything we're doing, I mean, is stuff that he brought. Plays are plays. I mean, everybody understands that. There aren't a lot of new plays in football, but the way he calls them, the way he names them, all that stuff, we've all learned. So we've taken what he's got as his playbook and going with that. Yeah, and then beyond the next step beyond that, but it's every step of the way going back to I guess February when we really started meeting as a group. We being coaches, not the players. Everything's been collaborative. Tim, that's one of the things I'm really impressed with him. He's a really good communicator, very collaborative with everybody. He pulls. He wants ideas from people, not just, hey, has anybody got an idea, but he's trying to actively get that, which I think is a really good thing. And so every time we walk out of the room, I think there's a pretty good consensus. Hey, this is the best thing for us to be doing right now. And that's important when you go present to the players. But it's been that way every step of the way. And then, we bounce ideas around in there. And I say we. I'm probably like in the back of the room, more so than anybody. But, we talk about things. And you're always looking for ways that might be able to threaten the defense a little bit more. And Brendan does some things that maybe at least will give them some things to think about. And, hopefully we can just, keep expanding on that a little bit.
Owen Sebring with KGN. We've got a couple I'm going to try to squeeze in here. First, I just want to hear about the kind of Michigan pipeline. I think you've got 6 guys on your team that are Michigan natives, all kind of, some that grew up as close as an hour to East Lansing. Yep. Just what's made that pipeline so successful. I think Cohen talked about Desmond King being somebody that he first saw go from Detroit to Iowa and succeed here. The other part I was going to ask about was just when Phil Parker was playing at Michigan State, you were the O-line coach here, and in 2 of his games against Iowa had an interception and had a punt block for a touchdown, I believe. I know you have a pretty famously long memory for football games, so just want to know if you remember kind of game planning for Phil Parker.
The play he remembers the most is not being in there when we were in the bootleg, because he claims he told Coach Perlis it's coming, all that stuff. He's on the sideline. I've got tremendous respect for Coach Perlis. He was what a great defensive, coach and staff they were. But that's pretty stupid not having Phil in on the goal line defense. I don't know why you wouldn't do that in retrospect. What's that, 40 years ago, 30 years ago? But anyway, I remember all those games. And the thing I remember about Phil mostly, and don't ask me why it's funny, we ended up working together for a quarter century. I just remember watching him and thinking that, if he's got to be like a cousin to the Stoopses, because to me, the way he played was very similar to the 3 Stoopses, and obviously Mark hadn't played at that point, but all 3 of those guys were just smart as could be and tough and really, really good players. And you can just tell watching them play. I got to be on the field with the Stoopses, knew how they were mentally and how they communicate with everybody, and I figured Phil was the same way. He's a 3-time All-Big Ten player. That's really hard to do. And he wasn't the fastest guy. He's certainly not a combine guy, and he still says they were, Nick tried to run him out of there and all that stuff as a player. But, Phil doesn't go away. He's one of those guys. So, what a great career he had. And then, as far as the players from up there, Hayden Large, I've talked about that one. I'm still not sure how he got here. I'm just really glad. I guess him and Van Kiekreeks were buddies a little bit, the families. So that's kind of what let it open the door at least. But, we got if you want to call it a pipeline, but I think, historically, back in the 80s, we used to get guys from Jersey, and the common denominator, I think, was once guys come out here from an area, and if they have success and really like it, then they recruit the guys that come afterwards. And I think that's what we've seen in Detroit. We've been really lucky. The other thing I would say, I think Phil's been the guy who's done most of the work there. He sees things a little bit differently. And I remember with Desmond, I was in seeing another guy on a recruiting visit, and the guy ended up not visiting us. We went there, made a last-ditch effort. I think it was a Friday morning. I flew out of there, and then he dropped me off at the airport, and he said, I'm going to go see this other kid. It was Desmond. And so I never even saw him. Next thing you know, he's on campus, and we offered him and all that stuff, and then the rest is history. But my point there is Phil is willing to see things in players maybe other people don't see. He's not a guy who copycat recruits, where so-and-so offers, so we're going to throw one in there. He just doesn't do that. He makes his own evaluations, and he's been right on an awful lot of them. You think about Desmond, just got a nice text from Micah Hyde, another guy that was, going to the MAC, and, what a career he's had. So, Phil's got a rare ability that way, I think, to see things that are pretty good. Yep.
Hey, Kirk. Elliot Clough, Hawkeye Beacon. Wanted to ask about that new 4-1-6 package that you ran with Zach Lutmer as effectively the will linebacker, how that came together. And then I know Phil talked to us, I think last spring, about Zach starting to stick out.
Right.
I guess how has he stuck out in practice and earned that trust to get on the field?
Yeah, it's the same, kind of the same as Brennan's package. You know, you kick ideas around, everybody's thinking about things, and you got a guy who's done some good things. You know, Zach's really done well. Defensively, he's done a good job on special teams. And you get in some situations where, you know, maybe plug this player in and he can be helpful for us. So, you know, it comes down to what's the job responsibility going to be, and then can he fit that? Can he, you know, play that role? If they've got 3 tight ends in the game, we're probably not going to have them out there, that type of deal, or else somebody's going to be out, you know, somebody else. But, yeah, I think it's just a good way to be, you know, be open-minded, be creative, and use guys that seem to be ascending, and Zach's certainly doing that.
Hey, Kirk, Matt McGowan with the Daily Island. You talked a lot about maturity in the offensive line, but what does that maturity look like when it's out in the field?
It's something you feel, you know, I guess more than anything else. You know, our guys look more like the kind of line we want to be right now physically, and you can't hand that to a guy either. Like they've, you know, some guys walk in here, but not here. We don't get many guys that walk in that look like that, but when they finish, hopefully they climb that ladder. That's a lesson I learned watching our wrestlers, the way they operated back in the 80s. And they still do, but I mean, back in the 80s, that was, you know, where'd this guy come from? How come they didn't recruit this 3-time state champion and they took this guy instead? And then, but it's just part of it's a feel too, you know, where guys' maturity, I think, brings confidence sometimes. But again, usually you gotta go through some bad experiences to get there. That's usually how the path works. You know, very few guys just walk in and, you know, I worked with John. I'm not going to say I coached Jonathan Ogden. I've worked with him for 3 years. He didn't have many bad experiences when I was around because he was so good. You know, but most guys go through some growing pains.
Last question, Tyler.
Kirk, Tyler Tashman with the Des Moines Register. Just curious, between how Drew Stevens ended last season to now, I mean, what's the biggest areas of growth you've kind of seen during that process?
Yeah, and as you well know, like he had done pretty well, but last season it was a crash landing. Just talking about some of those bad experiences, same thing, and it wasn't bad. It was really bad. It just, you know, where you have to wonder, like, you know, is this guy okay? You hear about it more in baseball, right? Where a guy can't throw from second base to first after playing Major League Baseball for 9 years. It wasn't quite that bad, but you know, I was concerned. I was just kind of wondering, like, where's he at, and is he going to be able to come out of this? And he's done that tenfold. He just, back in January when he got back here, just went to work. And it's that second, third year thing. Again, I'm talking in generalities, but that seems where guys, in general terms, start to get traction. Yeah, he's just so much more confident now. I think he better knows how to approach things day to day, week to week. And yeah, he's playing with a lot of confidence, and he's had good ability. That's not an issue. Although he is a lot more mature and stronger than he was certainly when he showed up here. You know, he used to joke about what he looked like when he first got here that first spring. I mean, he looked like a 14-year-old, you know. So he's really done a good job, and it's a credit to his hard work. It really is. Okay, thank you, guys. Thanks, Kirk.
You applied for credentials for Michigan State. Didn't get it yet. I'm sure it'll be a roll call. You get there, I think.
Yep. Cool. Thanks, Whites.